Welcome to February's reading recap. I'm having a really hard time believing that February is already over. Where did time go? I feel like January it took so long to get through, and then February just whizzed by, and now we're into March, and it's just crazy. But I wanted to go through the books that I read in February and share a little bit about those. So I started with a super long one, The Auschwitz Escape. This was such a neat World War II book. It was just so well researched and so well written, and it is long. I felt a little bit nervous picking this up because I just don't do the best with long books. They kind of overwhelm me. But I was recommended this book. I actually got it at a library sale a couple months ago. I was actually only going to get one book. I was only going to get this book. This was the only book I was going to come out of the sale with. But then they told me that if I fill a whole bag of books, I could get them all for $5. So then I got a lot of books. But this was the book that I was actually going for, and I really was excited to read it. So it was on my TBR list, and then Kimberly Woodhouse mentioned that she loved it, and so that bumped it up a lot higher, and so I actually read it at the start of February. He has a very distinct writing style in this book, and I just loved how these characters interacted and intersected. We have different parts of the story, so it's like part 1, part 2, and then there's just quite a couple in the story, and they had different characters at the beginning. So one was from one POV and then another was a different POV. And I was just really curious to see how they all correlated and coincided. And it was just really neat how we tied all the characters together and where they met. And then we had some backstory. So the different parts at the beginning made everything really tie together as we were reading later on, and we discovered, oh, this character was at this thing and this is his backstory and this is the other character's backstory. And now they all tie together with this grand escape. I will say the story was really well researched. Really well researched. They did pull off an escape in the story. It kind of gives it away with the title. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't say that. But he just did a really amazing job of researching Auschwitz and concentration camps and how escapes would actually feasibly work. After that, I went back to Project Scarlet, my own story, and I read it again. I am so sick of this story. I've read it so many times, but I did a pretty major edit on it where I basically rewrote the last half of the book. So some major things changed, and I really wanted to make sure that I could read it at least one more time to make sure that everything was coming together really well and all the loose ends were tied together in the right way, how I wanted it, and that I hadn't missed anything. So it was a really good read just to be able to go through all those major edits and just make sure that they were all good from a big picture standpoint, because I've gone through all the little things and done all the edits, but I just want to make sure that it was actually coming out right. I've had a couple beta readers go through it, so I know that they've liked it and they've really enjoyed it and they've had some great feedback, so I know that it's coming together well. I just wanted to make sure from my standpoint that I was tying up all the loose ends that I wanted to. So I decided the best thing to do would just be to read it in bulk. So not to take like one chapter at a time, I just wanted to read through the whole thing to get the big picture overview. So I read through the whole thing in like 3 days, where it's just major chunks of the book, just going through the whole story and just getting a big picture overview. And let's just say I do really like how it turned out. I am kind of sick of the story though, so I think that's affecting what I'm thinking of the book. But other people who have read it have said that it's pretty strong, so I am excited to be sending that in to agents and editors pretty soon. So if you're interested in staying in the loop for my literary agent pitching journey, because that is about to start, make sure to join my newsletter. There should be a link in the description below, and I would love to have you follow along and join on that journey. That was a shameless plug. After that, I read Up From the Dust. So this is a new debut novel, and it was just so good. I just love this story. It was really, really well written. I loved getting into the characters. So we have the story of Martha, which most people know of the story of Martha and Lazarus and Mary, and we know the sibling dynamics, but she just took it to another level with all of the emotional aspects of it, where we just start when Martha is really young, and then we see her grow into the woman who would have that reaction later on with Jesus. The emotions are just there in the story. It just really tugs at your heart and makes you think. I really just enjoyed the romantic elements, but then all of the emotional elements tied together so well, and it just felt so compelling. What I really love is that it does tie in the biblical aspects, but it just adds so much to the story and really brings these characters to life. I felt like she just pulled it off. And then lastly, we totally switched genres, so get rid of the historical fiction here because we entered cyber thrillers. So I read the book 1 of this, a long time ago when it first came out, and so when I saw that she had book 2 coming out, I really wanted to snag a copy, and I am so glad I did because I really enjoyed this story. It takes on the same intensity and cyber thriller moments as the previous one, but with different characters and just different relationships going on. What I really appreciate about this is that it is a Christian story, so the characters are Christian and you can see those Christian elements woven in, but it's not like over your head Christian and annoying in that way, because I've definitely read those books as well, but I felt like it was just really tastefully written. The elements of romance that were woven in were just really tasteful as well, where it didn't feel like it was overwhelming the plot, but it just came alongside really well. And so that was 8 down. So these are all the books that I read this February. It was quite the busy month, so I didn't have a ton of reading time. And I will say that the Auschwitz Escape was really long, so that kind of took up probably like 2 book slots because it's just like 500 pages, and that's just a lot of pages for a book. I felt like I really had some great reads this month. So if you had any great reads that you'd like to share about, please leave a comment below, and I'd love to chat a little bit about some of the books that you read in February. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe for more bookish content, and I will be seeing you again soon.